right that the earth is mine. Burn bright, let the ember shine. You know I'm gonna get it every time. Champion, wearing the crown. I can see my name in lights. Spark from the heart and it shines so bright. Yeah, let the whole world know. Let's go, let's go, let's go.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of Coffee with the Freight Coach. My name is Chris Jolly. I am your host, and I am the Freight Coach. Before we get started here today, I gotta continuously thank each and every one of you who come back multiple times a week and listen to this podcast. I can't actually put it into context how much it means to me, and I'm just so appreciative that you guys all are out here and the support that's growing. And this is a complete organic growth that has happened over the last 6 to 7 months, and it's just wild to me. And thank you guys all for that. If you are a first-time listener, this is the real side of freight. This is what you're going to experience out there. There is nothing cookie cutter about this. I'm going to keep it real with you guys because as somebody who has been in this industry for pretty much my entire life, I know that there are so many tools and everything out there that isn't really talked about a lot. And I want to bring all of that information to you. I want to highlight the companies that are out there making these things happen out there. And also, I got to get you guys to subscribe though. I'm getting close. My goal is to have 100% of my listeners be subscribers, and I'm getting there. So if you haven't subscribed to this, please hit pause, back out, hit that subscribe button, share this out if you liked it. If you don't like it, let me know about it. I need to know. I'm always open to improve. And one more thing, I got to continue to push. My goal for April is to get 10,000 downloads in the month of April alone. So with that being said, it's in the universe. I'm manifesting this into reality, and I'm going to need each and every one of you to continue to push that. So let's all achieve this goal. And you never know, something wild. I might do something wild once we hit that number here at the end of April. So that being said, we're going to jump into today's episode. I got a very special guest for you guys. This company is the solution that they provide for people for carriers and brokers alike is something that I haven't seen yet. And I'm really looking forward to talking about this and diving in. So with that being said, my guest today is Matt Leffler with vHub. Matt, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much, Chris. I'm very excited to be here. I really appreciate it.
Heck yeah, man. What, dude, so let's get everybody to get to know you a little bit. How are you in freight? I think this is the one question. I like asking this question the most because you get different sides of the spectrum. You get the people like myself who've been in it my entire life. And then you get the people who are like, I applied to 40 companies after I graduated college. They hired me and I can't get away from it.
Absolutely. Look, I have a special place in my heart for entrepreneurs. So what you're doing here is fantastic. And I love what you're doing. So keep it up. And thank you for having me on the program. So talking about how I got into freight, I really talk about my father. So my dad was an old roadway guy. So he started back in the 70s before deregulation. He ran maintenance for him. So when he was with Roadway before there was deregulation, you had really 3 trucking companies. It was Roadway, it was Yellow, and it was CF. And those 3 companies controlled freight in America. And what my father was able to do is run maintenance for Roadway. And eventually he went to go to work for a company called Airborne. Airborne later became DHL. But while he was there, his entire business was maintaining assets for Airborne with independent providers. It was a completely outsourced operation. So he followed the trend of outsourcing. And back in 1992, he took a loan off his life insurance policy to start a business. And that business was Outsourced Fleet Services. And what we did was we were the largest provider for a company called RPS. RPS became Caliber became FedEx Ground. So we have been in the maintenance business for a very long time. He ran that business up until 2018. So how I got in this industry. I am actually an attorney. So I practiced law for a couple of years.
Damn lawyers.
I did. I keep my law license because that's my fallback. So if the transportation industry doesn't work, I can always jump back into the courtroom.
There we go.
But I joined my father in 2012. And what my job was to do was to diversify our customer base and provide more value for fleets. So what outsource really did was find ways to take the repair and maintenance that you have to have in this industry and control the spend, predict the spend, and make it so that we were an extension of that company's maintenance programs. So I was fortunate enough to work with some of the largest carriers on the planet. We were maintaining assets for people like Extra and Milestone, carriers like Old Dominion and UPS and FedEx, and it was an amazing opportunity. So back in 2018, we were approached by Dickinson Fleet Services. And Dickinson at the time was owned by the private equity firm Ridgemont, and they were in the acquisition mode. And really what they were trying to do was acquire companies that had penetration in the trailer space.
Yeah.
So in North America, there's about 5 million trailers that are bouncing around, and their way they're maintained is generally by shops, but mobile was what we had been in with outsource. And mobile is one of the most efficient ways to maintain assets at scale.
Yeah.
So I joined up with Dickinson as a vice president of sales, and I was in that organization to really drive new revenue growth, find opportunities to make, basically reduce the cost for maintenance for fleets. If I can provide you value in that sense, I was excited.
Yeah.
So I was with them for about a year and a half, and then I left Dickinson to join a firm called Decisiv. So Decisiv today is one of the largest providers of software as a service for the maintenance business.
Okay.
So they are the solution for Volvo Assist and PACCAR Fleet Solutions.
Nice.
They are the software that connects all the OEM dealers, because at the end of the day, transportation is inextricably linked to maintenance. And
no, it should be. If it's not, it should be.
absolutely. Yeah. So I was with Decisiv for about a year, and then I got an opportunity. And the opportunity really, really resonated with me. And that's kind of the company you alluded to, which is vHub.
Yeah.
So vHub is a technology company that connects organizations in need of additional trailers to organizations with those additional trailers. The company's cloud-based platform powers unified trailer sourcing and setup. So it reinvents the way trailing equipment is managed, and it fulfills to optimize what we have in this industry, which is we need to better utilize our equipment. Manufacturing is an ecosystem. And in the sense of it being an ecosystem, that any part of that delay can stop the production of what people actually need.
Yeah.
So what vHub really tries to do is provide a software that allows people, like brokers, for example, to find free assets that they can utilize for a given period of time and reposition for a carrier. It might work from an OEM's perspective, moving it to the final destination, or it could be a company saying, I just need to get this rebalanced.
Yep.
The other part that we do is sharing. So in the world of transportation, there's really 4 major pushes. That's automation, that is connected, that is electric, and then finally sharing. So sharing assets.
Okay.
I hear it called ACES. And so we're part of that ACES platform, is trying to find ways to make trailers more efficient.
No, I mean, I think that right there. So as a broker, I know that, everybody's like, oh, we're asset light brokerage, which we all know is kind of a bullshit line, like at the end of the day, when you say you're asset light, if you have one truck registered to you, come on. But it's like, this isn't a tool. Cause I know when I was brokering, we had to stage trailers at our shippers, and we had to have a trailer pool of sometimes 15. We don't own them. So what we would do, we would go out and lease them, and then we would run power only. And, but the major problem was, how do we get that lease back to the receiving city or the shipping city? And that was a constant battle, and it's like, and as a broker, you're kind of finessing your insurance, you're finessing everything else to get this carrier to bring it back. Or if they drop it somewhere, how the hell are we going to get it recovered and repowered to bring it back and stuff like that? So it's like, I want to talk about that, because I know that, like, when we talked prior to this is the one thing that I loved the most, was talking about that one-way rental, that you can do that. So let's dive into that a little bit, because I think that that's a common problem amongst a lot assets and carriers and brokers alike. I think that's a common problem that we both share, is it's like you have that rental and you can't just leave it at the receiver or in the receiving city. You got to bring it back to the shipper.
What I love about that, Chris, as you mentioned, it's a common problem.
Mm-hmm.
This is something that I always love, is I love focusing on problems. So as you kind of allude to, this has been a problem for 30 or 40 years, is how do you rebalance a fleet? Well, the problems don't change. The technologies that solve those problems change.
Mm-hmm.
So in the world of trying to do a one-way, you have different options. You could call a tow truck and say, hey, could you just drive this over to this location for me? It might not be the most efficient, but it's possible. You could have a driver do it with no billable miles and say, hey, I'll use my own carrier resources. We'll move it. We won't get paid for it. That's another option. The other way people do it is they pay a couple $100, $500 to $1,000 to get an asset moved. What vHub tries to do, and you really put a nail on the head with it, which is, we have trailers that are going one way. And these trailers can be rented or at least repositioned to achieve that goal. So for the shipper or for the carrier or for the broker, once that trailer's in the repositioning platform, you're not going to have to pay for it. You just get to have a free trailer. And in order for us to make this efficient, we have to have controls over the quality of the asset. So what we carry on our platform is the certificates of insurance for every stakeholder. We have the power to do the inspections pre and post trip. So you don't get to rent that asset until you do a walk around inspection, taking pictures that are saved in Google Cloud. So that if you use that asset, and you hopefully will find some great value by being able to now have an asset you can go and pick up freight with. If it gets to the shipper, it gets to the final destination and it's already been used, you do the post-trip inspection with the pictures, and any damage is captured at those moments so that you get essentially a free trailer, one-way trip, and you reduce the cost to make this happen. To your point, there is one-way trips all across the country all the time, but no one aggregates it. And if you don't aggregate it, you don't get the value of what the platform can do. So what our goal is to do is, it costs nothing to put a trailer on the platform for a one-way repositioning. Once someone decides to reposition that, the owner of that asset pays a very small fee, I think up to $80, and then it gets used to go all across the country and get to its final destination.
Yeah, and I know from a fleet perspective that's a big, like the larger fleets that are out there, you know, they're making commitments to some of their larger shippers all the time about drop trailer pools or asset availability at that point. And like, if 15% of the trailers required are in different spots of the country, what do? How do they reposition all of those trailers, you know, cost effectively? You know, like I could only imagine how that sticks out on their P&L when it comes down to those, you know, because deadhead miles is a huge thing, you know, and those dead miles are out there. So how do you do that? And I think like when you can pair up with a company like vHub, where you can source that out and you don't have to have the expense of one of your own drivers going to get that and then running dead miles or trying to find something else to load their trailer with to get it there. And you can find somebody to reposition it for you. Like that's a huge, I think that's a huge time save and a headache lifted off of your shoulders at that point.
Absolutely. What I love about trailers in the industry is every single problem with trailers are problems of scale. And I love telling people that if they don't deal a lot with the mega fleets over the road carriers, fleet rebalancing is a big issue. You get the way to look at it is the individual trailers like the blood cells all across your body moving around. And if they pool up in your leg, you got a problem. And if you're a carrier, this is a problem that happens more than you want it to.
Yes.
And the nature of the way that we work with different shippers and how long those contracts are, stuff is moving fast. I mean, I used to be in the place where the mega fleets would have a contract with a big shipper for 3 or 4 years. Then it went to once a year. And I've heard even 6 months in terms of some activities. So the goal of making fleet rebalancing not a way you sink money to solve a problem, but to make money or at least reduce costs is a super useful and valuable tool.
Yeah. So what security, like I got to ask, what security measures do you guys have in place? Because you said with the pre-trip and the post-trip inspection and stuff like that. How do we ensure anybody out there from a broker or carrier that these drivers are actually going through and pre and post-tripping these things? Because that's one thing that I know can escalate very quickly. Like I've dealt with that as a broker that, you know, unfortunately something happened to the trailer in transit and then the driver who's a power only carrier claimed that it wasn't their responsibility because it was there prior, but he didn't note it on the pre-trip and all of that stuff. And it escalates quick. What's the checks and balances to ensure that that's limited or minimized to as much as possible?
You've done a great job explaining exactly how challenging this problem is.
Yeah.
Which is anything can happen from the shipper's location to when that final destination takes place. So the way that we made the platform to as best we can at this stage to ensure those issues is to make sure that everybody has accurate certificates of insurance. As an owner of a particular asset, you can set your limitations for who can move your stuff. So you could choose to say, it's only going to be these carriers that I'm going to allow to move my items, or only if they have X amount of insurance. Now, when it comes to the inspection process, the vHub app forces you to do an inspection. You don't get to take that trailer unless you go through the process of taking the before and after pictures and basically moving that asset into your own transportation system. So what we're trying to do at the high level is make sure the beginning stages are as accurate as possible. What we do on the backside is even more important. And I look at what Yelp has done, what Uber Freight has done with the rating system. So what happens with our platform is the owner of the asset gets to rate the performance of the company who moves it. And that company who moves it gets to rate the quality of the owner. And the documentation like your federal annual inspection, all available on demand. So the goal here is to anticipate the problem because things will get broken. I mean, this is essentially a rental type of relationship.
Yeah, it's inevitable.
If it's
It happens.
Yeah, if there is an emergency issue and it's something that was defective with the actual owner of that asset, that's going to be on the owner of the asset to help pay for that. If the driver abuses it or misuses the equipment, again, that'll be the driver's responsibility. In our platform, we have the ability to transact deals through credit cards and other ACH systems. So we can even put things on like credit holds if that's necessary for certain carriers to make sure that when that asset is brought back, it is in the same condition as when it left.
Okay. So how do you guys stop, we've all heard the term catfishing. How do you stop that from happening where you got somebody out there who's putting out, I don't know, like this might be simple, but it's like you think a trailer's in one condition, but it's like Swiss cheese on the sidewalls. There's holes everywhere, it's not drivable. How do you stop that from happening? And like, how does that, because it's like you have those carriers who commit to going and grabbing it and then, those commitments that they make to haul freight based on the perceived condition of a trailer. How do you guys try and stop that from happening or becoming a reality for your guys' clients?
The main thing we want to talk about is onboarding. So when you onboard an asset into the platform, we make sure that you put the specific information about the make, model, VIN, and things like, does it have swing doors or a roll-up door?
Yeah.
That is a really big issue. If I tell you that it's got a roll-up and you find out it's a swing, everything you've thought about you're going to do is kind of change it. So the accuracy of the data is critical. Mm-hmm. Now, if the driver shows up and that asset is supposed to be a 2013 Wabash and now it's a 2005 Hyundai that doesn't have has a tire that's bald, that is when you rate the owner and say, this is inaccurate. This is not what I'm not going to move it. I'm not going to get into this. I'm going to rate them as a 1 or a 0, whatever. And then from our side, we then look at the aggregated rating systems and approach the carriers or the owners and say, look, what are you doing? This isn't how this works. Like the whole point of this is to give supply chain visibility. And if you don't give good visibility into what the condition of that equipment is, that's completely destroys the value proposition. So we are incentivized to make sure the data coming in is as clean and accurate as possible.
Okay. So like, say it's a one-way or say it's, like a 2-week rental. Do you guys require that they notify in between every single move? So like say the trailer's sitting in Buffalo, New York right now, and it's a couple-week rental and they tell you they're taking it down to Atlanta, Georgia. Now, before they can leave Atlanta, do they have to do another notification of, hey, now we're going to move this from Atlanta over to Biloxi and stuff like that? Or is it just, it's 2 weeks, unlimited miles, blah, 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 do what you want as long as it's in Dallas on the 14th?
Yeah, great question. So how it would work for us is that's why the telematics integrations are so important. Mm-hmm. I don't need anybody to tell me where they're taking this trailer. The machine will tell me where it's going. And so the goal for us is to have the integrations with the various telematics providers, and we have several at this stage, that are going to help us understand not just on the positioning side, but on the other part of the business, which is the rental side and sharing side. That's how I calculate how much you might get invoiced for, how many miles you drove with that asset. That's how we price out the value of these different technologies. The repositioning, go for it. Go all it's a time duration, unlimited miles, have fun. Just don't damage it.
Yeah, no, for sure. And then so like, if it's that's the with the rental, like say I'm a one person, I just got my authority. I have a truck and I want to and then I don't know, something, I'm making up a bunch of shit right now, but it's going to be a question for you. I just got my authority. I bought my first truck. I don't have the capital to buy a trailer, but I want to utilize a rental agreement with a company like vHub. How do I go about doing something like that?
That's a great question, and I love it because really what you're alluding to is people need more flexible ways to get equipment.
Correct.
If you are going to be in a position to need equipment, the options you have typically are going to be to buy it, which is one thing, to lease it, which is another type of relationship, or to rent it. Renting isn't very easy, but renting is by far the most efficient, in my opinion. So the way that it would work is the carrier would jump onto my platform. They would put in the credentials that they need, so the certificate of insurance and all of the different pieces there. And then once they find a suitable owner, so many companies can rent their assets. So imagine a dealer for a trailer company that may have some rentals that are available. Mm-hmm. These are rented by the day, so you can rent them for as long as you want or for as short as you want. And it really just kind of aligns with the value proposition. Is if you're a trucking owner and you have a load to pick up and you need a trailer for a day, but not the next day, why in the world would you pay for the trailer for 2 days? Like, I don't want you to do that. I want the carrier to have the flexibility to run their business the way that they can be most efficient. And if you can make sharing more efficient than owning, I mean, owning, why many big carriers own assets is they need guaranteed capacity. And if they didn't have guaranteed capacity, they would disappoint their customers. But if you look at the analogous places like in the intermodal space, massive pools of assets that are rented by the day by any number of carriers. And that's what we see as the vision for the over-the-road carriers on dry vans and things like that.
Okay. No, I think that, no, I like this because, there are those things, and it's like, I'm trying to think of like from a startup perspective, because to me, it's like, if you're out there and you're a carrier, you got your one truck, you've been a driver for 15 years and you decided to take a leap of faith on your own and do your own thing, because like trailers kind of dried up late last year. You couldn't buy them. You couldn't rent them either. Yeah. And it's like, and then I couldn't imagine being in that position where you finally go out, you buy your own equipment, you're ready to start your own journey, and then bam, because like, I don't care what anybody says, everybody's like, oh, have a plan and, make sure that stuff's lined up prior. It's like, it's not that easy, like clearly you haven't started a business before if you think everything just goes smooth. But, it's like, because it's like you have your truck and then what, oh, now there's no trailers. What am I supposed to do? And it's like, you don't necessarily want to jump into the power only game, because I mean, power only is like, if you're a freight broker out there and you're looking to make a mark for yourself as a broker, start looking into power only moves for some of your customers, because that's an untapped market out there that nobody wants to do. But that's not the point. The point here is how do I, the risk that's involved in that, because there isn't anybody vetting that equipment. I've moved plenty of power only moves in my career where the driver shows up and, like, back to the Swiss cheese analogy, there's holes in the side of the trailer. One of the tires is flat. The other one's bald. The fifth with the kingpin's not locking properly and everything else, because it's like, it's just one of those things that just sits in their yard and they don't think about it. So it's like, then what? Then you're like those costs that are associated with that lost time, for example, for an owner operator, like this company, like what you guys offer right here helps expedite that. It brings you access to another group of trailer pools that are out there for you to utilize in those situations. Cause like, like I said, Extra, McKinney, all of those legacy brands that rent trailers, for example, they have a finite supply. I've tried to rent to broker before, and they're like, yeah, we don't have any for you at this time. And you're like, what am I going to do? So
what I love about the idea of vHub is that we're really trying to focus on what a company's core competency is. If you're a trucking company, your core competency is delivering freight on time and undamaged. Are you a world-class owner of equipment? Are you a world-class maintainer of equipment? If you're not the best at this, why do you want to incorporate that cost structure into your business? Mm-hmm. And that's why I like the idea of having these types of opportunities that give carriers flexibility. Because to your point, there's a lot of carriers who are like, I don't want to rent. I want to own all my stuff, and that's what I'm going to do. And that's a perfectly good business. But if there's somebody who's like, look, I just want to move stuff and make money. Like, if I can get the equipment, I can get better loads. Yeah. And that's what we want to do, is give people flexibility in the technologies that are out there.
No, so like when you were talking about like with the tracking software, so like now I'm the owner of 150 dry vans that I'm going to let you guys use. I'm going to put it on vHub's platform. How do I know where my equipment's at?
So the way that you do that is you're going to have your own telematics, generally speaking. And if you don't have your own telematics, the way we do it is that the application from the driver who's rented that asset, we're following. Every single driver carries a supercomputer in their pocket. So we have a better understanding of generally where these assets are going to be.
How do you ensure that that's done, though? Because I've had plenty of scenarios like that where the tracking software fails and so on and so forth.
Absolutely. So this is a big challenge with the industry generally. Yep. So when the telematics on the trailers first came out, the value proposition that they could deliver was, I can tell you twice a day where your trailer is.
Yes.
And people were excited about that. They were jumping up and down, because finding trailers and losing trailers is a very common phenomenon in this industry.
A lot more than people want to admit.
Oh, absolutely. Or just losing a tire, losing a subframe. I mean, just the amount of things that can happen to that asset is incredible. The technologies and the reliability of the telematics have increased manifestly more. So the battery technology of 10 years ago looks nothing like the battery technology of today. So many of the telematics, whether it's a Skybits or a Fleet Locate from Spear, and whatever that might look like, those are far more reliable. But still, you're going to be relying on some of the places like the shippers in-gating and out-gating processes, and you're still going to have other systems to rely on. But from the vHub perspective, we really do see the value of connected systems that can tell you not just where the trailer is, how far it's gone, is the door open or closed, is the asset loaded or unloaded. These are types of information that are really, really valuable and will get better as time goes on.
No, definitely. And I think like the visibility piece is always going to be, because, it's so easy to say we have complete visibility. We know where everything is. And then all of a sudden they lose the trailer when it's late. Oh, I don't know where the driver's at. But that's that has nothing to do with this conversation. That's just 10 years of hearing that in my career.
Here's a question I'd have for you. Have you ever heard a driver say, I had a great experience returning this trailer to this place? How often do you hear that story?
I can't say it was like a common conversation.
So turning in a trailer to a rental business is painful. It is a painful process. Typically, you're given a specific location that it has to go to. You're going to be in line with a whole bunch of other people that are doing the same thing. And in almost every trailer repair or every trailer leasing company or trailer rental company, it's a manual process. It's paper. It's somebody physically inspecting every single piece of it and having it all in a very slow process. What we're trying to drive on the rental side of the business is a digital transformation. Why must something be done in paper if it can be done digitally? Why must there be an inspector from the organization who owns it, as well as a driver, who both have alignment in making sure the trailer is inspected efficiently and making the experience for the driver as best as possible? It sucks, man. I used to do a ton of trailer returns for many of my customers when they came off a lease. And the way I would do it is if I saw a write-up on anything, it would come back to my facility. So I only turned in perfect equipment, because it would be way too difficult for my drivers to sit there for 3 hours and wait for someone to do an inspection for all the different types of damages that could have been there. It's a process. It's a system in the business that is just still very archaic.
No, for sure. And that's what I like though, because I'm right there with you. If it can be automated, let's automate it, and it's like, it's never going to remove the human interaction from it. Cause there's only so much you can automate, but if there's steps in your process you can automate, I'm all about it. I'm still hoping to find that one piece that, and who knows, somebody's probably going to hear this and be like, that's existed for 10 years now. But I want that one thing where it's like, I can send out an email blast without making it look like an email blast. So I can individually, cause I like personalizing things, but everybody's got that script, that they send out there and everything. I want to personalize it, but I also don't want to have to create 25 templates, and then go through and individualize it. I don't know. That's just first world problem in that regard. But I just think that in any of our processes, and then especially transportation, it's still, Matt, to me, there's still so much more to go in regards to automation and cleaning up a lot of these processes. And it's a lot of, it's a lot of that old school mentality that kind of comes through with this. So it's like, how do you guys handle the pushback? Because when you guys are out there trying to talk to some of these fleets, some of these carriers out there that have an extra 75 to 100 trailers that are just sitting there in their yards, not being used. Do you guys get a lot of pushback on that or in that regard? Or are they like, it's just sitting here, take it?
That's a great question. And I'm going to answer it in the best way I possibly can to kind of explain this to broader trends. So I'm a big believer in trends and forces. And I think many of the best carriers on the planet kind of understand the trends and the forces that are happening. So it used to be the case, you owned your equipment and you owned your routes, and you'd have these pools of trailers for your big shippers, and that's what the business was. So the only people that could compete with you are people that looked identical to you. So asset-based carriers with trailer pools, that was how you competed for certain shippers. And then the digital transformation began to happen. And I'll use Uber as the example. Uber Freight and Convoy, both good examples. They came in and said, look, we can solve your shipment problems, big carrier or big shipper, but we're going to do it with technology. And the big shippers are like, do you have trailer pools? Do you have trailers available? And they're like, no. And the big shipper's like, okay, go away. Like,
Yeah.
that doesn't solve my problem. And so these companies have invested in ways to have more power only offerings. And every major carrier today is pivoting to have some level of a power only offering, and they have the ability to work with owner operators. So what we're all seeing is, how do you increase efficiency, preserve driver retention, and then find ways to utilize your equipment better? Kind of to your point with talking about trailer manufacturers, tens of thousands of trailers are not going to be produced today, even though the demand is there, because the ecosystem doesn't allow it. And even the best carriers on the planet, on the dedicated side, may only have an 80 to 85% utilization rate of their existing fleet, because the rebalancing issues we talked about and all of that. So there is pushback. There always will be pushback. But there are carriers that are innovative and understand that where their value is not being trailer owners, is being great shippers, great carriers who can get things on time, undamaged, and giving them flexibility is enormous value to them. So we have a mix. Some people see the vision, some people don't, and that's okay.
No, definitely. I just think that, from a broker, we were always given this option. It was like, we need drop trailers. We need this. We need one-way rentals. We need, short, like, I had shippers in Las Vegas in the middle of the summer that were like, we just want to store a reefer trailer and run it 24/7 for my crew to take a break in. Because anybody who's ever been in Vegas in July or Phoenix in July, you know what it's like out here. And that's the thing. Like, those are real requests that you're going to face as a broker. They're not all day, every day or anything like that. But I'm just saying, like, those are things. And then it's like, how do we do a drop trailer? How do I offer that as a service? How do I, because it's like, you have to be able to have multiple modes that you're going to sell, and I know I talk about finding your niche, and my niche is to start. And then when we grow out from there, but it's like, power only is such an untapped thing. And it's like, you can do reefer, drive in, or flatbed. Do you guys offer that? Is it just are you guys just starting in drive in, or is it everything?
Every trailing equipment is on the platform, or will be on the platform within the next month or two. So every type of thing, whether it's reefers, containers, chassis, dump trailers, flatbeds, just dry vans, any type of trailing asset is going to be available on the platform. And what I love, when I first met you and started talking about brokers are solutions people. Someone gives them a problem, and to get that business, you have to hustle and say, how can I solve this problem? And if this vHub platform is a tool in their toolbox to say, here's how you can get one-way trailers, here's how you can get rental trailers, and if it can be made more efficient, it's going to make the brokers more competitive. And that's what I'm so excited about, is this is a valuable tool that has only been around for a year and a half. So we are in pure startup mode, and we are in the growing phase. And it's just been a really interesting ride so far.
No, definitely. I mean, I vividly remember a couple of conversations I had with some of my customers when I was brokering, is they were moving their entire operation. They had a facility in Reno and they were moving it down to Las Vegas. But the thing is they needed to stage trailers for 30 to 45 days to load them up, because they were disassembling their entire warehouse and they needed to truck it down there. And it was finding that capacity where you could drop a trailer for 30 to 45 days, even from the rental game at that point. It was tough. It was extremely difficult to find that. And especially the amount of trailers that they needed, because they needed like 60 trailers. And then they needed another 30 for the live loading pieces of it to get them down there as well. So it's like, that's a complex thing. But as a broker, you need to be able to solve that. You can't say we can't find those things, because otherwise it's like, that's where that door starts to creep open a little bit for your competition, when you're told that I can't do that.
The minute you say no, the problem doesn't go away when you say you can't solve it. The problem just goes to someone else to solve it.
Exactly. And like, to keep your market share, you have to be able to, you have to put your best foot forward.
Absolutely.
And these are the risks that I talk about when you are a broker. You have to take on some things. Like, I'm never saying bite off more than you can chew. If you truly don't know how to organize a drop trailer pool for 45 days, then organize 45 separate power only moves down there, don't do that, because you're going to do everybody a disservice at that point. But if you know how to do that, if you know how to stage and rent 45 trailers and then have power only moves down to Las Vegas as a one-way move, roll the dice. But this is what I'm talking about. Is there's a company now out there called vHub that you can go to and organize this stuff, because it's like, man, I've tried that so many different times. And especially because some of the trailer rentals, they don't let you take them one way across country. That was a massive problem because then like the back end of this is once they were moved in Las Vegas, they were going to have about 10 power only moves that they needed to move out to Tennessee. And the thing is we couldn't find, that was the big hang up, was we couldn't find 10 trailers that we could do one-way rentals out to Tennessee. So it's like that this is a real life scenario. And some people listening to this right now be like, that never happened. It 1000% happened. I worked on it for almost 2 months to get it done, but we got it done. Thank God. And it's, it's just one of those things like, this is such a value add, whether you're, oh, go ahead. I'm sorry. I'll stop rambling.
No, you're exactly right. I mean, the thing is like these problems you described, they're coordination problems. And coordination problems require multiple stakeholders with different sets of information to solve it. And the thing that makes brokers so the successful ones so successful is the aggressiveness to try to solve the customer's problem.
Yeah.
I obsess about customers, and everything that I know is customers want flexibility in their ability to buy, rent, or use something that they need. And if you think about like the analogy I use is like the pallet business, like the Shep pallet system with pallets all across the country, all across the world, doing certain activities. If there was an analogous structure to a pool of pallets, that solves a lot of problems. But if you had a bunch of companies say, well, I have 50 pallets and I can loan you 2 of them, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah. So trailers have been owned in this process because that is how the business has been conducted for the past 30 years. Just because it was done that way for a while doesn't mean it has to continue forever. And the sharing economy, the sharing industry is only going to get more and more substantial. And if you can share trailers and rent trailers efficiently, there's no reason to go buy them. Why would you buy some problem you're going to have for 10 years to maintain and keep safe and then remarket? All of these pieces can just go away if you can make renting more efficient.
No, I agree with that. Like, I love this idea. Like, I love this product. Like, I legitimately think that this is phenomenal because this helps multiple facets of this industry. This isn't just segmented towards one thing because owner-operators, small trucking companies, they need trailers. And then especially because it's like around the holidays, and I know everybody deals with this when that holiday push between late November throughout December, every trailer that could be rented has been rented by a couple of 3 massive large parcel companies.
Yeah.
That, but
and retailers.
Right, exactly. All of that stuff is gone. So what does the little man and woman do in those scenarios? What do? They can't compete. They have no trailer. Now, they can't afford to sit for 4 to 6 weeks because the 50,000 trailer, this is a fictitious number, but the 50,000 trailers that are available for rent in this country are gone for 6 weeks. They're not going to sit there and sit idle. They can't afford to.
I spent years of my career on the peak season for trailer rental companies and leasing companies, like getting hundreds of thousands of trailers set up to be ready for peak season rentals from essentially October until February.
Yeah.
And what I love about the vHub platform is kind of you alluded to, but let's talk about the finances, how you actually pay for this and use it.
Yes.
It costs you nothing to list a trailer for repositioning on my site. It costs you nothing to put a trailer for rental on my platform.
Free is always a good price. I'm going to throw that out.
We want to have visibility. I want to make sure the barriers to you trying something new are as minimal as possible. The only time that my company, vHub, will make any money on this type of thing is if you find value. If you make a transaction on my platform, if you rent your asset out, or if you make a repositioning, then you pay something. So we've aligned our pricing as close to the value as possible. And there's no risk. There's no risk to put your assets on the platform and see if this is a solution for you.
Yeah. No, man, I love it. I'm not just saying this because you're sitting in front of me right now, man. Like I'm going back because I was a broker for 10 years. All right. I legitimately dealt with this time in and time out. And it wasn't always a big request, but it was a customer asking me because they needed short-term storage. They didn't want their product to leave their facility. They just needed somebody to stage a drive-in. They weren't a high volume shipper. They didn't get the attention of a lot of those bigger carriers who have the capacity to drop a trailer for a couple of weeks to do somebody solid. So who do they reach out to? They reach out to their broker contacts in these scenarios. And it's like, it's not a massive revenue generating opportunity, but it's a value add to your customer. And that's what it is. When you're a third party, when you're a provider of anything, I don't care what you are, you have to add value and make your customers' lives easier. You cannot say you can't do that, And it's like, I just think that in this scenario, to be able to have that capability, whether it's a dry van, a reefer, open deck, you need a chassis to drop out there because they have a shipping container that they need trucked back from the middle of the desert that they're building a solar farm, and to drive that truck back to the Port of Long Beach. Now there's an option for that. You're not calling somebody in Los Angeles asking them how much to truck a chassis up to the middle of the desert in Nevada to drop that on and truck it back down there.
No, if you like doing it that way, by all means continue. But for you and me, I want to make things that can be automated. And if I can make something more efficient, I want to make it efficient. And more than anything, I want to improve how the industry operates overall. And if we can drive efficiencies, we can't get enough drivers. We can't get enough mechanics. We can't get enough equipment. But if we can take the things that I just listed and make any one of those more efficient or have a better experience, we are winning. And that's what makes me so excited about being a part of the vHub startup and watching the incredible interest from the industry about what we're doing, which is just fantastic.
I love it, man. Matt, how do people reach out to you? How do people find out more about vHub, and how do they kind of get this process rolling, man? Because I want everybody out here who's listening to this to check this stuff out, because this is a problem that all of my listeners that will run into. Okay. Regardless of what side of the industry you're on, something like this will pop up eventually, and where you need some form of rental, or you need to rent your trailer, or you need that short-term storage at your facility in your shipper, and you don't want that stuff leaving. So how can people reach out to you?
Yeah, I love that question. And the ways you do it as anything else. You can find us in the iTunes store. You can find us in the Google Play Store. You can visit our website at vhubapp.com. Find us on Facebook, find us on LinkedIn, and reach out to me. We would love to help you make your trailers more efficient. I'd love nothing more.
Perfect. And I will put all that information in the show notes for people to follow. And I mean, Matt, thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it. And I'm looking forward to see you guys blow things up and go huge, because this is a massive, massive problem you guys are solving for this industry.
Thank you so much, Chris. There are more things to come. So I look forward to everyone following us and learning about this business.
All right, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Right that the earth is mine, burn bright, let the ember shine. You know I'm gonna get it every time. Champion, wearing the crown. I can see my name in lights, spark from the heart and it shines so bright. Yeah, let the whole world know